Well, thank you for the opportunity to kind of address a little bit about Lawrence's Fisheries and the impact that the river has had on us. Our business started in 1950. My grandfather was an entrepreneur of many respects. He was on the wholesale seafood market and Fulton Market, which is a very famous area in Chicago. And at that time he backed a young fisherman who wanted to start a commercial fishing venture out on Lake Michigan. So up and down the south and north branch of the Chicago River, there were a lot of commercial fishing enterprises. So back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and even up into the 60s, commercial fishing was a very viable part of Chicago commerce. So they would fish for lake trout, whitefish, lake perch, and a fish called chubs. And those fish were many times sold to restaurants and grocery stores throughout the Chicagoland area, and my grandfather was part of that wholesale market. So he backed a fisherman here with the promise and a guarantee that that fisherman would always sell the fish that he caught on Lake Michigan to my grandfather, who would then sell it on Fulton Market. So he was kind of cutting out the supply chain, much like an entrepreneur would do today, find a new way to make an extra nickel. That gentleman wasn't honest in his dealings and was selling fish that he caught to other people on the market, which he didn't know that my grandfather knew. So he breached his contract, and my grandfather came and said to him, "You have two choices. You can go to jail, or you can release your share of the fishing boat to me, and we'll call it done." So post Fisheries, right, we have some pictures. It was started here in 1945, 46, and in 1948, beginning of 49 is when my grandfather took over, and so he now became a commercial fisherman. Along with that, there was a small retail operation, which was then named Lawrence's Fisheries. So they sold fresh fish and smoked fish. Whoever's had smoked fish. Lots of people. You're from Minnesota, that makes sense. Most people that I talk to who live here in Chicago have never had smoked fish. They have no idea what it is. It was a huge business. A lot of European immigrants came to the Chicagoland area. They had smoked fish. There was a natural place for that. So we became producers, purveyors, processors, smokers, wholesalers, and retailers. So there was actually 6 different entities that happened out of this location. There's old pictures, if you might have noticed some of those up in the store, that showed how this was all configured back in the day. So they ran 2 commercial fishing boats out on Lake Michigan up until about 1967. I was telling Larry and Gary earlier, smoked fish business basically ended in 1967 when a man bought smoked fish in Chicago, put it in the trunk of his car and drove to Tennessee, ate it 3 days later, got sick, blamed it on the smoked fish, and at that time Mayor Daley got wind of that and pretty much shut down smoked fish in Chicago. Made it very difficult to produce smoked fish. So that's why most Chicagoans never had smoked fish, because their parents had it, the kids never did. So that business all went away. However, it supplied our family on the front side with that commercial fishing venture, the capital to expand the business that we have here today. So we are the last of the fisheries and fishermen that were on the Chicago River. This is the last location. The previous one closed about 12 years ago. It was on the North Branch. So this is it. But there used to be almost 30 restaurants, and out of those, about 20 of them were commercial fishing on Lake Michigan. So that industry went away completely. There's no one fishing in Illinois, southern Wisconsin, or northern Indiana commercial fishing on Lake Michigan anymore. So it's an industry that's gone away, which is very interesting. You can go on a website and look up zebra mussels, and you'll get a little history of an invasive species that was referred to earlier that has affected the Great Lakes and Lake Michigan in particular. So our business has always had a dock presence here for the 50, 64 years that we've owned it, but even prior to that. So the Chicago Historic Society has pictures of the Chicago River And we have a couple of those that shows the topography here of this street being much lower than it was because the bridge didn't go over the river this way, it went over the river in a shorter distance. So this was all sloped down to the river. So it was a natural bank. Sometime in the 20s, from stories that I've heard, the river was dredged for commerce. So the south branch predominantly was lumber yards, and there's still several that are here right now, and textiles. So if you go back out on the dock and if you look across the river, there's a large 4-story brick building, and you'll see a concrete walkway, and then you'll see large doorways that are cut into that brickwork. So commerce ships would pull up and unload right into those buildings. Most of those buildings are now gone. They've been demolished. There's no purpose for it anymore. So for us, this is a huge part of why we're here today, is because the commercial fishing aspect of Lake Michigan allowed us to do this. So when we first started here in 1951-52, we were strictly fresh fish and smoked fish and wholesalers, and my grandfather introduced 4 items on a menu fried, and that was our shrimp, ocean perch, frog legs, and chicken. So he now entered into a restaurant, whereas before he was just a carryout. And so our business started increasing on a retail basis and completely went away on a wholesale and producing basis. And so we are now kind of an iconic institution in Chicago. As I said, we've been here for 64 years. We're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So the next time you're in Chicago, anytime, except for 8 days a year, you can come and get your fix of fried seafood. So we have partnered with different canoeing and kayak organizations to allow public access. We have a nice 200-foot dock, and so we benefit from that for people who come on pleasure craft. I'm sure you've probably seen a couple people come in already. So throughout the temperate months, we have the ability to have people come here and get food. We're one of the only places on the Chicago River where somebody can actually dock a boat for free and relax. So ultimately this will all be done. We'll have more picnic tables down here so people come here as a destination. We offer people the opportunity to come, park their car, unload their kayak, their canoe, go use the river any day of the year. So it's something we're committed to. As far as a company, we feel like it's how we can give back. And then that's just about what we do. We're very concerned about our environment. We have a parking lot that was just constructed, you walk through or saw, and we wanted to make sure that we didn't have an impact on the Chicago River. So along with the company who supplied us the concrete and then our engineering company, we have the first parking lot in the nation, according to the people who supplied us the product, that is permeable concrete. So think of Rice Krispies. And you can literally pour water through the concrete and it goes right through it. But on top of that are permeable pavers. So people have done permeable pavers and they've done permeable concrete, but no one has ever mixed the two. So this is a unique opportunity for us to give back and learn, and for these people who helped us design this. So all that water runs through our parking lot, and I've stood in our windows on the south side. We had a 2.5-inch rainfall about 2 weeks ago, and I literally watched the water go down, and that paver area is at the south corner, and the water just absolutely disappeared. So no puddling, no sewer, nothing goes out to the city sewer system. It's all stored underground in large stone, and then there's a barrier to keep particulate from going through. It's very unique. The city of Chicago is huge on protecting the river, so we feel honored to be a part of that, something brand new in the Chicagoland area and really in the nation. So thank you so much for coming. Please come again if you're ever through Chicago. You're always welcome to dock, of course, but we really thank you for bringing awareness to the Chicago River. Thanks for your time.